Hey guys, welcome to Wedio Academy. My name's Gabriel and I'm a colorist. Today I'm going to be covering the basics of color grading, essential techniques of color grading. I hope you guys enjoy it. So that's what this first node is going to be. I'm going to use the lift, gamma, and gain tools to bring up the highlights. And we don't want to bring this too far because his skin is the brightest thing in this image, just based on the way that I lit it. And we're going to bring the darks down a little bit. We're not going to go overboard because we do want to see some of the texture of these seats. Just bring it some more. And now I'm going to add in some saturation. I'm really trying not to use my wave panel because I want you to see it on the screen. So that's looking pretty good. You can also see that it's quite noisy in the shadows. I'll just zoom in here. I'm going to turn off the timeline. You're getting some noise here. So if you pay for Resolve, you can use the temporal noise reduction and just bring this up a bit until it starts to look a little better. Actually, I'm going to do this in a new node. Add node, add serial. These are all serial nodes. It's a good idea to put noise reduction on its own node because it can be pretty CPU intensive, so you can turn it on and off as needed. So what are some things we can do here to take this even further? I'm going to add a new node, and I'm going to use the qualifier. This is our tool for picking a specific color out and just affecting that color. Now you can press this button. I like to hit Shift H, and you can see what it is that you're selecting. And you can use some of these tools to really dial that in. If you're just downloading Resolve now, it'll probably look a little different because they just changed the qualifier tool a little bit. I had to use an older version of Resolve to get some of these older projects in. Is what it is, but it's mostly the same, but that's just something to keep in mind. So I like to really crank the blur, and I don't see denoise here, which is on a newer version of Resolve, but that's a good tool as well, and you just want to play it through. You can see a lot of this noise happening, and that's not good. So I'm just going to keep blurring it. I'm going to clean black a little bit, which is just affecting what's gray and kind of cleaning that up. And that's looking a bit better. I think we can actually even get away with that. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'm just going to bring down the gamma in the skin tones, which really gives it a lot of depth. It makes it feel more contrasty when it's not necessarily more contrasty. And that's starting to feel pretty good. If my key wasn't very good, I can also add a power window that really just only affects what's in this circle or everything outside of the circle, depending on what you select here. So I'm going to make it a bit softer, and then I'm going to use my tracking tool, my tracker, to track this throughout the scene. Very powerful tool. There are ways to track frame by frame that I'm going to show you right now because it's not wanting to track past this point. And you just hit this frame button. There's already keyframe here. I'm just going to bring that way and just move it. And now we have another keyframe. And I'm just going to move this where he sort of ended up there. Now that's pretty good. Not the most beautiful thing in the world, but because it's so soft, I don't think anyone's going to notice. And now we're making sure none of this key spills out of this power window. from here, I can do another correction, and I'm just going to copy this node, and I'm just hitting Control C. I'm going to make a new node. I'm going to paste. So that just copies and pastes everything, but I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. I'm going to get rid of my key. Actually, I'm going to keep my key, but I'm going to hit invert. And I'll show you what that does. It just hits opposite. And I'm going to go to my window and I'm going to select outside. And now everything outside of this window is going to be affected while nothing inside will be. And now, reaching for my panels, don't do it. I'm going to add a bit more contrast to the background without affecting his face. And we can take a look at how this is looking with and without this adjustment. That's without, that's with. Now, I don't like that this is on his shirt, so I'm actually going to make another power window. I'm going to bring this here. I'm going to make it soft. I'm going to select this button here, and that removes that from the equation as well. I'm just going to track it. All right, and now we can see that his shirt is not affected as much anymore either. Now, one thing I neglected to do is my primary correction for white balance, and I can see now that it's off. So I got a little ahead of myself, so I'm just going to push this towards the warm and make sure these on my RGB parade are lined up. So that makes it white. I've got to fix up this key because, as we know, this node affects this node. So just change the colors of my key, which normally I would just make a node outside of it and deal with it that way. But I'm not gonna. That would be a way to work around changing these nodes and having to redo these keys. But that's all right. Okay, and that is a really good first run of this shot. Okay, moving along. Now I can copy this grade over, but it's going to be a little different because this was a completely different theater. So I'm going to take this. It's actually in a pretty good place. I'm going to track it. I'm going to make it smaller. Try that. Cool. I'm going to do the same thing here. Just retract this. I'm going to lift this up here and make it more along the lines of the shape of his shirt. You're really thinking broad strokes when it comes to power windows for the most part. Our white balance is looking pretty good, but I want to make his face a little brighter. So I'm just going to pull up the gain. I'm going to pull down the gamma just to give it some more contrast and texture and depth. I'm going to look at this clip. I think he needs more gain here just to match. And his skin's actually looking a little yellow now that I'm looking at it a little closer. So I'm going to adjust the gamma and just bring it towards the opposite side of the color wheel for that and adjust that. So you can see what this node is doing on its own. Now these are looking a bit better. I'm going to adjust the seats to make them a little less yellow as well. And those are looking pretty right on. They're looking just about the same. All right, so we've got these two clips pretty close. They're looking pretty good. If I play them one up, just going to turn off the audio here. And those are looking right on. So the Film Columbus job I used to talk about workflow and more of an interview setup. For this project, it's an artist named Rose Haze. This was a music video for one of her songs. It was a pretty vibey video. I had a lot of fun coloring this one because we had a lot of freedom. And as you can see, it's a bit different. So let's take a look at what's going on with this grade, since it's a bit more complicated. To start, I did an initial contrast adjustment. You can see I left quite a bit of room in the blacks here. You can tell it's less contrasty already. I did a white balance. Everything's looking pretty good with that respect. Moving on. This was a color balance for a creative effect. The director and I chatted about what we could do with this piece to make it a little different. And we decided, oh, let's just make all the darks green. And so that's what we did. Basically, all that was me using the lift tool and just pushing it towards the green side of this color wheel. Easy. And I also, there's another icon here, which is the key function here. And basically that just affects how much of what that node's doing ends up in the grade. So if this is at 0.447 and I reset it, this is 1. So let's go back and forward. You can see there's a lot more green here when I reset this key node, or this node key function. And when I turn it back on, it's much less prominent, and you can see it reflected in the parade as well. So that's off, this is on, off, on. You get the picture. If you feel like you took one node too far, this is a good tool for pulling that back, just right here in the key output. Moving on. This, I think I just was adjusting it to make it feel darker, which, there you go, it's darker. This tool, I really went in to adjust her skin tone. So this was very much to separate her skin tone using the keyer and using the power window, and then also a key, so it moves with her. I pretty much just let the key take almost everything in the power window without just focusing on her skin, because she was getting kind of dark in the frame anyways. So these two nodes here, this one making everything darker, this one bringing out her as a subject. You can see she's a bit brighter. She's separated from the background. Her skin looks more normal. Both of these things brought out the subject more. Adjusting the background and the foreground or subject separately is a big part of what you can do as a colorist. And then finally we did, a reverse halation here. The reverse halation is a trick that I picked up from watching Ian Vertivec talk about, I think, coloring the girl with the dragon tattoo, or in reference to a different film that he did, and I can't remember which one it is. Anyway, it's the exact opposite or reciprocal of the halation effect, where you key out the darkest parts of the image and you blur those out. So you can see it's blurred, the darkest parts of the image are keyed. This is before, this is after, and you can really tell in the guitar head here. After, before. So it gives it that surreal feeling. And that is the reverse halation. So all of these nodes went into making this one clip, which is not all that long. It's a pretty long clip, all things said and done, in terms of, shooting a music video or a commercial, but there's a lot of work that goes into these things, and just even the ideation of figuring out what you're going to do, it takes time. So we can go through and sort of start from scratch. So we're going to start with going dark, going bright. That's our initial contrast, and then we want our white balance. It's feeling pretty good. So I'm just going to do it like I would do it now, with not being in the same mindset as I was at the time. So usually I go straight for skin tones. in that second node. Second or third node after the basic corrections. Just gonna make a power window here. Let's track it. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to make it pop. It's looking nice. I'm going to add my green. Boom. Nailed it. And I'm going to add my reverse halation. So I'm going to get the darkest parts of the image. And let's blur it. All right, cool. I'm gonna adjust the screen a little bit. And I also, thinking about it, I really want this to cover more of the subject, so I'm gonna make it bigger. And this track will still work. As long as you are on clip and not frame, it will adjust the whole track and not make a keyframe. So I'm going to remove this key and see what it does. All right, that's feeling nice. And I think what I'm gonna do is take this key and just bring it down. Just bring those blacks down a little bit. But I'm going to avoid doing that on our talent because I want to see the texture of her shirt. So I'm going to make a power window, make it nice and soft, track it, and I'm going to say get everything outside of this power window. Great, so that's what I did today. Let's look at what I did 6 years ago. Quite different. Most noticeably the color of the green, but you know, I'm just looking at this one clip right now, and at the time I was looking at the whole project, and I also have 6 years experience, different tastes than I had back then. So, you know, different gear, different experience, a lot of things factor into how these things look the way they look. So this is what I did today. I like this a lot, actually. This project was, turned out a little different than, well, we really just kind of shot stuff and didn't really know what it was going to turn into. But since all the cans were lined up in the same spot, what we ended up doing was cutting it so that they, well, why don't I just show you? I've done a lot of product work, and you know, the key, in my opinion, is really the details. You have to really dig in with your power windows and your keys. So this clip, it's a frame, so we don't even have to adjust the tracking for this. But let's look at the initial correction. So let's bring this down, bring this up. And my scopes are telling me that it's too warm, so I'm going to fix that. Looks better already. Adjust the black balance. Much better. So that's where we were. This is where we are. All right, you can tell that the front of this can is quite a bit darker than maybe it should be. you really want those graphics to pop out. And the reason this happened is because lighting metal is really tough. Anywhere you shine a light, you're going to get a reflection. So what I did was put some lights on the sides to get these nice lines here to sort of reveal the form and shape of it. We sprayed down the can to give it some texture and make it feel refreshing. And now we're going to bring out the front to make it pop. Okay, so starting with the white here of the can, let's try and dive into that. So not a bad key, not bad at all. Let's blur it, clean it up, and isolate it. Okay, we don't have to track it because it's only one frame. So that's nice, one less thing. Actually, I'm going to remove the table from this, so that's just going to be a matter of bringing this up. And of course, softening it. Always a good idea. Now let's pump up the gain, see what we get. Yeah, that's already feeling better. You can already see it better. But now we've lost all the yellow of these badass lightning bolts. So let's get in here. It's just the gain, just the lift. One of the reasons I don't like using a mouse, especially this older version of Resolve, I don't know why, but it just totally jumps whenever you start moving the mouse just a little bit, and it's like everything gets black. I don't get it. What are you gonna do? So I need to also isolate this as well. We got to do the same power window situation, maybe a little better than we did the first time around. Boom. Okay, so I'm gonna add some saturation. Oh yeah, we definitely needed that, and we're gonna double check our vector scope to see where that's landing. So without saturation or contrast adjustments, with saturation or contrast adjustments. Now this is really riding the line on broadcast safe. You'll know you're broadcast safe because you stay within if you draw imaginary lines between all these bounding boxes, that's your boundary. So when you start moving outside of that, you get out of broadcast safe. Now, did this piece go to broadcast? No, but you know, it's kind of a nice just reminder of not overdoing it with saturation, because you certainly can. You want to be a little careful. All right, now I kind of want this node here to be a little less warm because I feel like it's not quite balanced. Oh, it looks like it got stuck in this when we made that adjustment. So let's undo that. All right, that's better. Going back to my parade. Now I'm just going to go through and just start really getting nitpicky on these adjustments. Let's look at our black label, black portion of the label here. Just a circle will do. And let's make sure that's nice and dark. And I'm going to make this a little less blurry because you can just feel it getting soft. And this as well. Okay, I want to clean up this section here. So I'm just gonna just the luminance. There we go. Nope, too much. We're gonna make that its own node. So let's get in here. We just want the brightest bits. Starting to bleed in, so let's do a power window and just really dial it in. We just don't want that to stick out quite so much in terms of it being just off from the rest of the piece. So let's go back to blurring this up a bit. Maybe that'll help. Or honestly, it's not a bad idea just to pull this out and make it softer. I hate that I made this extra point here. I don't need it. It's already feeling a bit better. So that's where we were. This is where we are now. It's feeling much more defined, much more noticeable. I say poppy a lot, but you know, it's poppier. Now I'm feeling like I need this yellow as well. That's seems to be begging for attention. So let's take a look. And this is how I color as well. Not everyone goes node by node just saying, hey, this needs more, or this needs less, or whatever. A lot of people use node trees, which is pretty much just laid out every tool that they might want to use as a preset in nodes. So it looks like a very large node tree, and they just pick and choose what they want to use and what they don't. They turn things off and turn them on. That's not really how my brain works. The way I like to color is I just do the initial correction, and then I just start looking for the bits and pieces that need adjustment. To me, that feels like I'm working with the camera instead of trying to fit the look in with what I want. I want it to look good in the way that the camera exposed it, the way the DP wanted it, the way it was intended. And just, I try not to fight the machine. I try to work with the machine and with the tools that I have. So that's me. This is how I work. This is how my brain works. What's missing? What needs adjustment? And you can see it reflected here in the node graph. All right, so we got this keyed. Let's give it some attention. Nice. All right, there you go. This is the rectifier can. So that is a product shot. You know, no matter what kind of product I've worked on, it's always taken this level of detail to make them look great. And, you know, that's how you bring the life out of these products, is to just adjust them bit by bit until they start really popping off the screen so people want to buy them. And in this case, drink them. Thank you for watching my masterclass. I had a lot of fun making it. I hope you learned a lot watching it. If you're curious, have some questions, or are interested in connecting, find me on LinkedIn. You can just search for my name. It's very unique, so I'm the only one you'll find. And you can see my website on there. You can send me a message, ask me a question, whatever works. And of course, good luck. Good luck becoming a colorist. You know, you can do it.